They're only dumb when they don't actually drive you and the business where you want it to go. I think absolutely every goal could be a good goal given the right scenario of people, place, desire, all of those things. And I think that exact same goal that's an excellent goal for one person is a horrid goal for another person.
Are you feeling overwhelmed, stuck, or uncertain about how to grow your business without sacrificing what really matters most? Welcome to The Business You Really Want, the show for women ready to build a sustainable, fully aligned business. Aligned with what, you ask? You, your values, your life. Seriously, it is possible. I'm Tonya Kubo, and along with business advisor extraordinaire Gwen Bortner, we're here to show you how. Tonya here with my favorite operations expert and everyday effectiveness CEO, Gwen Bortner. Today we are talking about goals. More specifically, is there any such thing as a bad goal? So what do you say, Gwen?
What I always say, yes and no. There can be good goals and there can be bad goals, but it's not really about the goodness or the badness. It's really about that not all goals are created equal. And I think the problem is we've gotten too set on SMART goals.
Ooh, tell me more.
So SMART goals, the concept behind them is great, and I'll see how I do because we don't even have notes on this. So I'll see how I do on doing the SMART acronym. Tonya, you can help me out. So S stands for specific, M is measurable, A is, I think, attainable.
I've heard attainable and actionable.
Okay, whatever. Yeah, I think I've heard both as well, which I know is why I always struggle with it. R is usually realistic or something in that area. And then T is time bound, right? And so I think we've gotten so set on making sure that a goal fits the SMART framework that we often lose track of what is the goal itself. and is it actually leading us where we want to go, or are we picking a goal because we can easily fit it into the SMART framework?
So what you're saying is SMART goals could be dumb, or at least dumb for us.
I have actually said those exact words before, and I think it was before you and I were working together. So once again, you and I on the same wavelength. Yeah, I think I put that one time in a speech that SMART goals sometimes are dumb.
Okay, so I love that. I was like, oh, that could be fun. We should have you teach a talk on that at some point, but that's besides the point. So, okay, so I was going to ask you if you could give some examples of what we would consider, or what you would consider bad goals for business. But, let's go with this whole SMART goals can be dumb. What are some dumb goals for a business owner?
Well, I think they're only dumb when they don't actually drive you and the business where you want it to go. I think absolutely every goal could be a good goal given the right scenario of people, place, desire, all of those things. And I think that exact same goal that's an excellent goal for one person is a horrid goal for another person.
All right, give me an example.
All right. I'm going to use the classic example. It's one of our client examples. It's the one that I use a lot, that we love so much because it's such a great example.
Are we talking about the attorney again?
No.
Oh, it's a different one. Okay.
It's a different one. But it's another one you will be well familiar with. As soon as I start, be like, oh yeah. So it is typical in business to set a financial goal. It makes sense, right? Because finances is part of how we keep the scorecard for business. Yep. And watching your finances, I'm the very first person to say you need to be paying attention to your numbers. The numbers matter. All of that is true. All of that is absolutely 100% true. But if money isn't really your driver, if it's not a true motivator for you, having a financial goal as your primary business goal can be a really bad goal. And for one of our clients, I know money always kind of got her anxious, but she was also at a point in her life between her age, her retirement, all of the things that were going on. It was like, I wasn't actually convinced that money was an issue for her. And so I asked the question, I said, so how much money do you actually need to make? Like if you took $0 out of the business, is there a point that you would be homeless, that, that you wouldn't be able to feed,
It's a fair question.
Right. I mean, like what really is that really a driver? And, and she kind of looked at me and smirked and said, everyone tells me that I could live to be 100 and I'm not going to run out of money. And it was like, okay. So money is not a good driver for you. And just her personality, she was not, she's not a consumer, money is not a driver anyway. Right. But this added to it. It was like, so there's no actual survival need here either. And so, and she's old enough that she doesn't need to be working. She would be what we would call typical retirement age, although that, of course, is really shifting a ton.
Right.
I'm not really sure what that is anymore. And I said, so why are you working? Because she works hard and she does, and she does a lot. It's like, so why continue to do this as opposed to, read lots of mystery novels, which I know she likes to do. And she said, because I love the impact I make. I love the impact that I make with my clients. And it's a real motivator for me, which this also was zero surprise to me, knowing who she is and what her personality is and all of the things that go along with it. And so I said, so I want you to set a goal around impact. Now, it is not easy to set a SMART goal around impact. Not in the truest definition of the word. But I did say I do want it to be a goal, meaning that it needs to be measurable in some way that someone on the outside could help you evaluate whether or not you achieved it or not. And I'm way less worried about her achieving it, but as a means of starting to measure this. And I said, so work on that for a couple of weeks. And before we do planning, we'll talk again. And so she did, and she came up with a way that made sense for her and what her business was. It would totally not work for anybody else, and impact may not be a driver for anybody else. But the financial goal was actually a bad goal for her because it had zero motivation. It had zero drive for her. And the irony of the whole thing is when she switched her goal to impact, she made more money. No one was more shocked than her. I was only a little bit surprised, and it continued to that we did that fairly early in the year. It was probably Q2. By the end of the year, that was like one of her best years ever that she had ever had financially when she stopped having a goal around money.
Okay. And now it took me a minute to recognize who we were talking about, but so I do think it's important. I appreciate how you said, how she measured her impact wouldn't work for everybody. Because I feel like you are always really fair about one size does not fit all. But never. I think in this case, I just have a feeling that people listening have been told that you can't measure impact goals. And that's why they're shoved into the SMART goal framework. And so I happen to know in this particular case, what she came down to is that she could track the number of calls she made, the number of people she spoke to every day would make an impact in some way. Whether it was a connection call, whether it was a sales call, didn't matter. But if she was talking to a certain number of people per day, she was likely to have the impact she wanted by the end of the year. And so so she set it into something very proactive. She had full control over it, right? How many people am I going to approach today? And that led her probably, I think you would know this, to actually talking to more people ever, because now it was about building a relationship instead of being about getting a sale that she wasn't so much excited about. Is that fair?
I think that that's fair. And she tracked different types of impact.
Mm-hmm.
right? So there were ones that she would call long-term impact, which are her regular clients, where she's doing coaching or masterminding or whatever
Mm-hmm.
with, and they're spending time with her. And so she had a goal around that of, I want to be touching a certain number of people in that way, which is a different kind of impact than what you just described, but
Mm-hmm.
also still valid. And so it wasn't just a one size fits all answer to it. There were multiple elements to what that meant. And then she does public speaking as well. And so there was also, she knows that's yet a different level. So there's
Mm-hmm.
the real close, intimate impact, long-term connection. There's the you've seen me on stage and I've said something that probably made your mind go, hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just that connection level. And so she actually set goals at all three, knowing that they have different levels of impact. And some of them she doesn't have as much control over. Like you said, how many people she actually reaches out to, she has complete control over. How many people she has long-term relationship with because they're buying her service, she has less control over.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, it's as I keep thinking about SMART goals being dumb, and I cannot believe, as long as we've known each other, we've never had this conversation. But we have it right now. So, it's you're talking about how SMART goals can really hold people back. I was thinking initially just about well-intentioned goals. And I think going back to this example of, somebody setting revenue goals because that's what they're told business owners are supposed to do. Successful business owners make a certain amount of money. And in order to make that amount of money, they've got to set goals around the amount of money that they make. And in this specific example, of course, that was holding her business back because that just wasn't that exciting because there wasn't a true need associated with that goal.
There was no motivation around that. None.
So are there other ways that having well-intentioned goals can hold back your business growth?
I really do think it gets back to motivation. And we talked about this earlier in the series about motivation really is a key element for a goal being useful as a goal, as being a driver. It needs to be motivating. And money is a really easy thing to measure.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which is where I get worried about SMART goals, because we pick SMART goals for things that are easy to measure.
Mm-hmm.
And do they need to be measurable? Yes, they do in some fashion. But most of us, if we get a little creative, we can measure most things that we actually care about.
Mm-hmm.
It may take a little creativity, but we can. But instead, we go for easy. We go for an easy measurement instead of a useful or impactful measurement. Right.
Well, and I think sometimes, especially if we're in group settings, if everybody else is coming up with their goals really fast, we feel like we need to come up with them as fast. And like what I am taking away from this conversation is that if easier things, you can think of them faster, these deeper goals that are truly motivating may take some time to figure out what's the right measurable activity.
And one of the things I think it's important to say is it doesn't mean that financial goals also are bad.
Right.
Because for some people, that really is a motivation, and there's no judgment on them for that being a motivation. There's all sorts of reasons that number, whatever that financial goal is, could be a really significant motivator. It could be because it's making sure that you're getting your house payment and your groceries paid and your children clothed and all of the things. That can be a huge motivator. And really the motivation is all of those other things, but without that number, it's not happening. Right. And so it's not like one's good and one's bad. It just depends. This is the whole context matters. We should at some point do a follow-up, like after we've done 100 episodes, to see how many times we said context matters.
run all the transcripts through AI and let it
Yeah,
draft it for
exactly. How
us.
many times did context matters come up? Because it does. Context does matter. And the goal that's really important today may not be the goal that's important tomorrow because your context has changed.
Okay, stop there because you just gave me two what I think are important questions. So the first thing is, when you say context matters, I think in this specific case, what you're really talking about is that each entrepreneur is going to have their own values, right, that they bring to the table. And those values color everything they do. And then they also have their own vision for their business. Like, this is the kind of business I want to achieve. Some people truly have a vision for a 6-figure business. Other people have a vision for an 8-figure business. And there are some people who, quite honestly, they just want to pay for daycare. Okay. I know those people, and that's
Yeah.
totally fine as well. And depending on
All
where
of
you
those are
live,
right answers.
yeah, and depending on where you live, that might require a 6-figure business, to be fair. So what would you say is the process that a business owner can go through to align their goals with their values and the vision that they have for the business that they want to run?
So the first is being, this is going to sound easy, and it is so freaking hard. And that is to get really clear on what success actually means to you. We talk about it all the time in our quarterly session. What does success really mean to you? Not what society has told you success is, not necessarily what your family of origin says success is, not, your culture. There's all sorts of things that will condition us so far in our head that we don't even realize it's not our definition of success. Right.
Right.
Right. So that's the first piece, is to get really clear on what is your unique definition of success. And like I said, that sounds easy enough when I say the words. That is so hard. Right. And the great example I use is the attorney example, which, that, and I'm just going to reiterate it really fast, which was, in their mind, a successful attorney is a top-notch litigator. But that didn't align at all with who they were, their values, all the things that were going on in their life, etc. But it's been so ingrained between society, TV. You can't watch any of the courtroom dramas without knowing that the successful litigator is the awesome attorney, right? I mean,
right.
And so we don't realize that we've created this definition of success that isn't necessarily ours. So that is first and foremost the thing that you've got to be really clear on. What does success actually mean to you at this point in time? That's where the context matters comes in. What was successful for you before you had children may not be what success is after you have children, which may not be what success is after the children leave the nest. Those can all be very, very different definitions of success.
So how often, because I like that, and it matches my own lived experience, right? What was really important to me when I was 28 is not important to me now at 47. Just not. And I don't have any shame or regret over what was important to me at 28 either. Like, I'll be clear, it's not like I thought I used to be shallow. But how often should we reassess our goals and adjust them if needed? Your examples, have to do, like, just your recent examples right now had to do a lot with like certain stages of life. But I mean, do we just tie them to stages of life, or are there other points in time where it makes sense to reassess the goals and adjust as necessary?
I think any time that there is some significant shift in your world, that can be all sorts of things. It can be, a close loved one gets sick in a serious way. That could be an elderly parent, but it could be a spouse. It could be a best friend. It could be, where all of a sudden that's going to change what is actually what success is
Mhm.
looking like right here and right now. Um, and it can be, all sorts of unexpected things. My husband got a job. My husband lost a job.
Mhm.
Um, my best friend is wanting me to move with them to this new space. I mean, I can't even begin to think
Right.
of the number. It's anytime something significant really has changed. And our own process is we look at it every 90 days because sometimes there's shifts that we don't realize are shifts
Mhm.
that are happening. And I mean, really always pay attention if you see something big has happened because your definition probably has changed. But there's often lots of little shifts happening along the way.
Well, and I think what you're really saying, right, is there is what success looks like. And the definition of that for you as an individual can and often changes during major shifts in life. Like you use, get a job, lose a job, um, move to a location, move back to a location, family gets bigger, family gets smaller, all of that stuff, right? Those are major shifts that can change your definition of success. And then the second piece, which I think is really what goals are, it's what is our path? What are we going to do to achieve that definition of success?
Right.
And that is really where you're looking every 90 days or so. Like, is this still the right path to achieve that definition of success this year, this 5 years? Is that
Yeah.
on track?
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally on track. Um, and because one of the things that we talk about when we talk about goals is it's not about achieving the goal. It's about the journey on the goal. If you are miserable up to the point of achieving the goal, it wasn't a good goal
Mm.
because the journey is the bulk of the time. The achieving the goal is just a moment in time. And as soon as it's happened, it has passed. And so if we're only waiting for that, and so the process is we'll set this goal and we start down the path and it's like, this path is making me miserable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, well then let's change the goal. There's often a lot of different paths to achieving success. And this was just one of the paths. This particular goal was one of the paths. Let's sometimes back up and try a different direction. Sometimes we can just make a hard turn and go, make a different choice. But often we don't know that it's miserable until we start down it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why it is important. It reminds me of, I think I was 30, where I was just kind of looking and going, okay, I can tell you exactly how I got to right where I'm at. Because there was this part where I was like, I don't know how I got here. Like, how is this the life I'm living? And then it's like, oh, I know exactly how I got here, and I don't want to stay here. Right. So then,
Mhm.
and that's the pivot, right? That's the hard turn
Right.
left or the hard turn right, depending on which direction you prefer to go. So, okay. So we've actually covered a lot of ground and not a whole lot of time. So let me recap us very quickly. So I think the really important point you made is that not all goals are created equal. So it's not so much whether there's a good goal or a bad goal. It's, is this a good goal for you right now? And so not all goals are created equal. And in order to set the right goals for yourself, goals that are truly good for you, don't try to shove them into the SMART framework. If that works for you, awesome, but it doesn't work for a lot of people. Like Gwen said, SMART goals are dumb. Sometimes, not always.
Sometimes.
Yeah. But what you want to do is learn how to set objectives or, goals as targets that really serve your business and align with the values that you have. Gwen, do you want to add anything to that?
I really do think understanding that defining your definition of success is hard work is
Mm-hmm.
super important. And it takes a lot of time. And there will probably be lots of fits and starts.
Okay. So
that you'll start down a path and it's like, oh, nope, that
yeah.
wasn't quite it. Nope, not quite it. Not
Yeah.
quite it.
I love that because it's like, okay, because I was going to say, and and it all starts, your next step is just define what success looks like for you, right? Define your definition of winning. But like you said, that alone can be a really big job and a really
It
big
can.
task. So with that, what I want to say is if you're listening and you have a definition of success that you would like to share, email it to me. We're here to start conversations. And the best way to start a conversation is for us to put this information out there for you to think about and for you to respond to it. You can email me at Tonya at everydayeffectiveness.com. That's Tonya, Tonya at everydayeffectiveness.com. And we would love to know how you're defining success. And I would just love to know kind of the composite of all of our listeners. Gwen, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for helping us to recognize that SMART goals can be dumb and to figure out a better way. Thanks for tuning in to The Business You Really Want with Gwen Bortner. I'm Tonya Kubo, reminding you that sustainable success is within reach. Make sure to subscribe to the show and visit thebusinessyoureallyWant.com for more resources. Until next time, keep dreaming big and acting with intention.